I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rock Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Thank you for taking the time to download. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. I really love hanging out and getting amazing guests on this show, like today's guest, Leisa Peterson, who is the author of the book, The Mindful Millionaire. And I can't tell you how surprised I was of the conversation that we had, because I was expecting to talk about, mindful money practices and overcoming scarcity and how to create a healthy financial perspective. Or, not even create a healthy, mindful perspective. Maybe a mindful perspective, a healthy, mindful perspective towards money. And we actually get into a lot of topics that I'm very interested in. This is the first book, by the way, that actually references to your chakras and your energy sources in your body that could have amazing results towards your attitude towards money if you clear these areas, or if you attack the fears that are associated with money. This is the first book that I've ever read that mentions anything. For example, solar plexus. First time ever have I read a money or financial text that referred to the solar plexus, which I think it's huge. I mean, a lot of the fears that we have around money, makes sense. It's fear, right? So, clearing out a lot of those energy centers and taking a look, like a microscopic look at what is triggering those events. And we actually talk about near-death experiences. We talk about near-death experiences. We talk about her story, which is amazing. We talk about past life regressions. I was not expecting this. And this is truly a treat of a conversation. And for those who do not know who Leisa Peterson is, she is on a mission to help 1 million people elevate their financial consciousness. And that's one of the major reasons why she wrote this book. And as a money coach, business consultant, and spiritual teacher, Leisa hosts the Mindful Millionaire podcast, as well as she holds virtual workshops and goes on these deep dive retreats. And I just love how she blends financial strategy with mindfulness training. I just think that's unique. I don't see too much of that. I think it's all, I think a lot of people get intimidated by the numbers, and they who really is trained on economics growing up. I had an economics class, when I was in 7th grade. I got a certificate, but essentially there was no, even in high school, I don't think I was ever trained fully on investing. And we did like a stock market, like a simulated stock market, and I picked a PlayStation and won the event. But that had nothing to do with researching the market or trends, or looking at it as a whole. It was basically, I love PlayStation, so I went and bought all my simulated money into that stock. It was nothing towards, I had nothing, I contributed nothing to that success besides picking the stock. But a lot of our fears that are associated with money are deeply rooted in other factors in our lives, whether that be with our parents, our relationships with our families, spouses. A lot of trauma growing up can be directly correlated with your money issues, and we talk about that in this book, talk about that in this conversation. But the book is very practical. Like, there are methods in this book that you can practice in your life right now, starting today. You can immediately apply these to your life and start seeing results that are positive as far as your attitudes and possibly like your bank account. So, yeah, here's a little clip of Leisa and what's to come.
The reason I can help people, and this is what many people I think struggle with, is they don't always know what they're most afraid of. Mm-hmm. And therefore they go about constructing lives that are avoiding those fears. But in reality, in many cases, especially as an entrepreneur, we find that it is actually the fears, the shadows, the messes. There is in that the biggest opportunities to live a free, incredibly rewarding life. But as long as we push them away and we avoid the fear, we actually are living in a prison of our own construction.
I absolutely love that clip. Until we look at our fears, until we become brave enough to dissect the things that we are afraid of, we live in a prison created by ourselves. I love that clip. Think about that. Yeah, that's the kind of conversation we have today. This is going to be an awakening for a lot of people, and I really appreciate Leisa for coming on the show. This is going to be great. Before we get into it, though, please go to yoursuperiorself.com. Check me out. Leave me a message. Let me know what you guys are up to, how your journeys are going, how you're creating the life that you want. Go to Instagram. Follow me. Do it right now at TDowns80 and see some of the behind the scenes photos of my journey and what I'm trying to do over there. You can go on Facebook as well. I have a Your Superior Self page. Just search that and follow and like, and you'll see some of the other pictures that I have up posted of my journey. Just basically grinding out every day, meditating, not pictures of meditating, but running with the Buki, who is my daughter, who loves to go out and run with me. And yeah, I'm just paving my path, and you guys can see a little bit more of that and get some more information on the guests that come on the show. But without further ado, here is my mindful conversation with the author, Leisa Peterson.
Hi, I'm Leisa Peterson, and this is Your Superior Self.
Leisa, thank you so much for joining the show. This is going to be interesting. How are you?
Great, really good. I'm excited.
So I got your book, The Mindful Millionaire, right? But this is like different than any other financial gain book that I've read, because it doesn't just necessarily talk about tactics about accumulating wealth, but it talks about other things as well, about why you may not have it right now for yourself anyway, because of some of the emotional traumas or some type of mindset that you have towards money, which is, I think, is pretty cool. And then you start talking about chakras. Like, I've never seen a chakra reference in a money book before. So why don't you go ahead and tell us like what inspired this book and your philosophies?
So the book was definitely inspired by my own journey with money, but probably far more when I started coaching people about money. And I knew there was a challenge there, having worked with money for 25 years in my career. But when I started coaching people and I started hearing their stories, and I started seeing that there was a lot of commonality in the different things that people struggled with. And then I started seeing how there was a lot of commonality in the stories that they were holding on to. And that was the beginning of looking for some kind of framework. I was like, there is something happening here, and I just want to reverse engineer to provide clarity for people. And that's when the chakras came in, which, yeah, I'd never seen anybody talk about money other than like the root chakra. Sometimes people talk about money.
Did you have like a hesitation about putting that in a money mindful book? Like, Because like this is the first time I've ever seen anybody that talked about, kind of like a spirituality kind of thing with money.
Yeah, I didn't think that I would be able to get a book publisher to publish it, because I thought it was just me and my weird friends that thought it was cool. But I think because I have this background in money, I'm a certified financial planner. I'm not someone who's just kind of like, hey, this is awesome. Like, it came from a place of experience. And I think that was, every idea, it feels like, has already been invented or something. And so I don't think I really knew if that was possible. But when it all started to coming together, and if people are familiar, not with the chakras, but you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's actually inspired by the chakras. And so is Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. I mean, there've been a lot of people who've been inspired by this work. And so I was too. And it helped me classify what I saw happening in people's lives with money.
Awesome. So like, all right, let's say I'm coming to you as a client, or you're my coach, and I have, a hard time with money. My money belief system is jacked up. Like, obviously you probably would do some type of examination, but sort of like a survey or an interview, and kind of see what I'm about and what my finances are. And would you do like a spiritual, like, thing as well? Like, how would you bring me on? How would you onboard me into your clientele?
Yeah, I dance back and forth, as you saw in the book, between the yin and the yang. So I am wanting first and foremost to understand what's happening with money for, a person. Is it that they can't sell? Is it they can't ask for money? Is it that they have a ceiling and they've never earned more than, $50,000. And every time they start to earn more than that, they do something stupid and sabotage. Like, I'm looking for what's the pattern in the physical relationship with money. Once we get there, then I start to dig a little deeper of like, what's the challenge? What's the fear? What's the thing that's holding them back? And most of the time, and I just had this happen like a couple hours ago, where I've never worked with this person before, but as she started to tell me her backstory and the patterns of what had been going on, I immediately kick into another kind of zone, if you will, and I literally start to be given information. So in her case, I was like, what happened at 13? And it's so funny because people are like, nothing happened at 13. And then like 3 minutes or like 30 seconds later, oh, wait, this is what happened at 13. And I don't know where 13 comes from, but it happens over and over again. And so sure enough, the next thing you know, it's like, well, that's when I was doing everything my dad told me to do, even though I didn't want to. And I started losing myself, and it was like, okay, well, that has a lot to do with what's going on with money, because you're often, whenever you try to follow your passion, it's not what somebody's telling you to do. And, and then off we go, because what happens is once we open understanding of something like that, it never has the same kind of control over us. And it starts to change the way that we show up. It's like, oh, here we go again. I can see the pattern. And sometimes it's as simple as knowing what the pattern is, but a lot of times we need to know where those stories got created in order to do anything different.
So that an example, you said you get into this zone and something pops into your mind about being, they didn't say anything about being 13 and just something shows them, like something shows itself to you.
So it shows itself to me sometimes. So I'm what you could call clairsentient, where things will happen in my body. Things will come into my mind. I will start getting chills all over. I also am very sensitive. So when somebody's talking to me and they're talking about something that they might not realize has a lot of fear, I hear fear. So I'll go, can you explain that a little more? What's going on there? And they're like, wait, how do you know that? And they'll start to cry. And I've just done this so many times, hundreds and hundreds of times. And in the beginning, when it started to happen, and this was maybe 5-6 years ago, I didn't know. And I'd be like, this may sound weird. Like everything came off that way. Like, this may sound weird, but will you humor me? And then doing it with, hundreds of people or in a class with 100 people and being comfortable because it's always right. Like, it's always right. Not just, it's crazy. And even when people say no, I just sit and I wait. And then within a short amount of time, they'll be like, whoa, wait a minute. It's all unfolding. I get it. And so after a while, you just get used to it.
This interview is going to be amazing because I did not know that. And I didn't know that we were going to talk about that, but that is awesome. And I'm excited to talk about your gift and, all of this. This is amazing. So you can like pick up on things when it's just not about money, right? Like, I mean, your gift isn't just centered around money. It's everything else that could be associated with your client making money, like the fears that enable them to spend over, $50,000 on whatever, or earn $50,000 from wherever. And you help them realize that, or do you help them work through that by how would you help them out?
So what I do, which is probably different than a lot of people who have leaned into these gifts, is I understand fear. And I think it has a lot to do with my own journey, which you read about in the book. I've had some pretty tragic situations and I have dealt with extreme fears all my life, partly because they happened to me, partly because I was a thrill seeker for many years of my life. But it allowed me to develop this sixth sense around fear. So the reason I can help people, and this is what many people I think struggle with, is they don't always know what they're most afraid of. Mm-hmm. And therefore they go about constructing lives that are avoiding those fears. But in reality, in many cases, especially as an entrepreneur, we find that it is actually the fears, the shadows, the messes. There is in that the biggest opportunities to live a free, incredibly rewarding life. But as long as we push them away and we avoid the fear, we actually are living in a prison of our own construction.
I love that. So you're like bridging both worlds here, the financial investment world and kind of the spiritual, investment world, I guess, like, right. What fires you up more, right? Like, I mean, obviously, you were a CPA for a really long time. Like, are you still doing that? Or are you kind of like going with your gift and like trying to help people, in different ways?
So I do really enjoy helping people see just how much potential they have. So that may come in the form of like, oh my gosh, I just leaned into, like, my in-laws are in their 70s and they're not big risk takers. And yet I created an Airbnb class because we've really dialed in Airbnb, my husband and I created a class. And I said, would you be guinea pigs? Would you do this class? And I was like, I don't know if they're going to do it, but it's super fun because I knew they wanted some extra income. Mm-hmm. The next thing you know, they followed it to a T. They're renting out their house and living in the RV in the backyard when the guests come, and they rent out for a week. And it was like $10,000 in retirement income. And they enjoyed it. Like, it was crazy. And I love being a part of somebody not thinking that something's possible. And the next thing you know, they're making $100,000 or $200,000 when they could only make 30 or 40. Those sorts of big shifts are really exciting to me. And when I do the same thing for myself, I enjoy it too, like the Airbnb business.
How is that doing right now anyway, in the pandemic? Is it doing as well as it?
It's not we have houses in Sedona. And so that's a big, place to travel. Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because yes, it shut down just like everything else. So we lost bookings probably worth $15,000 or $20,000 over the course of March, April, May. We held off, got one of the places rented out just month to month. And then the other one we started renting again back in June. Nice. And we're booked. We're pretty close to being booked solid. It's not the same behavior. The prices have come down a little bit, but we're pretty darn happy with the fact that it's going to be okay, because we didn't know what was going to happen when it all kind of felt like it was falling apart.
Yeah, nobody did. I mean, it was scary there for a minute. I mean, things, the stock market was crashing. Oh man, I didn't want to look at my 401k. I could tell you that much. I still don't want to look at it. But yeah, I think that was a fear. Did you pick up on that fear?
Most definitely. Yeah. And those kind of times, I would say I am going to always be more conservative, probably than is good for me, because I just know that part of myself. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge stock market investor. In fact, what I'm doing right now with my investments, probably inspired by COVID, is I'm moving everything into more socially responsible impact investing, because if it goes down, I know that money's making a good impact in the world and it won't bother me. But when it's investing in companies that I probably wouldn't even buy their products, it doesn't really make me happy. So I'm listening to that voice.
Yeah, I told my wife I'm going to start, I'm going to start investing my money in toilet paper and beer. So explain that, like social responsibility investing. Like, what are you investing in?
So I'm working with an advisor. I've been managing my own money for a long time. And after COVID, I was like, I'm not actually doing this as well as someone who specializes. And so I had someone on my podcast many years ago, and we kept in touch, and he focuses on not just socially responsible, but like all kinds of crazy, awesome ventures that are coming together because there's a return on investment. I mean, that is comparable to, I think, the averages that you get in the stock market based on their historical returns. But it's just investing from your heart level, investing from this intuition that you want to follow your core values through and through in everything that you do.
So give me like an example. So like you can make up, something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like give me an example.
Like there was one fund that I was reading about, and we're still working through all the details, but it was a fund that had been, it's like a community fund that had been created, I think, in Boston, and they were talking about the situation. And Black families on average have a net worth in the Boston area of like really, really low numbers, like shockingly low numbers. And so they were looking at this fund had been around for 5 or 6 years. It had done very well, and it was investing in the community and projects and investing in businesses. And so it was a cooperative rather than you investing in one person's business. You're a part of this focus. And that's one example, but there's lots of different ways, right? There's things that you can invest in businesses all over the world. I like those sorts of things because I really believe in what happens in communities when people can start businesses, but that's just one of many.
Sure. No, that's a great example. I love that. But getting back to the book, I mean, so what else in your background? Like, where did you learn about the yin and the yang? Where did you learn about, the chakra, the meditation? Like, have you always been very mindful? Have you always had this type of mindset where you need to, have daily practices?
No, definitely not. I was raised in a home where my dad, my parents were hippies, and eventually my dad was one of the biggest drug dealers in the East Bay area growing up.
That's where you got your Mindful Millionaire from. That's the drug game.
The drug game. Yep. I had a fear from probably starting at about 7 or 8 that my parents were going to be taken away to prison, and I was going to live in a foster home. It was a really weird way to grow up, but I knew my dad was involved in things that his friends had gone to jail or gone to prison. And so I knew that it was not something that other families were supposed to know about. So I think at 12, I had believed in God, and something inside of me was like, not in the world I'm seeing. There can't be a God. And I checked that off and said, I'm going to be atheist, and I'm going to just focus on making lots of money and being super successful in my career, and it's going to be awesome. And that worked, not really, but on the outside, it looked like it worked. I worked my way through my MBA, and then just got the most incredible job opportunities and was working as an executive in a big bank. And I came home from work one day and found out that my dad had been brutally murdered by his ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend.
Mm.
And it was, I mean, really bad. And I just collapsed. And so that was back in 1999. I wasn't even sure I wanted to stick around. It was that painful for me. And within a few days of getting news, I turned my attention towards, at that time, I just wanted to learn about death and dying, which sounds really weird, but that was what I was obsessed with. And all the books that I bought about death and dying were Buddhist books. And so that began this journey that took me through the examination of what it meant to have control over your mind and your thoughts and all the beautiful things that Buddhism can teach us. But I did that for about 11 years and then began starting on a new kind of hero's journey to understand other religions. And I think what I teach now isn't any one religion, but it's inspired by all the teachers along the way.
I love that. No, I don't think the death experience or the death journey is, I read a lot of near-death experience books. Like, I'm just fascinated with it. I think what inspired that for me was a coworker of mine had lost his daughter, like 7-year-old girl. And like, I was just beside myself, and just how traumatic it was for him and how surprising it was that it escalated to that, level that quickly. And I was just taken back by the whole thing. And then like, I saw him like a month later and he's like doing, fairly well. Like his mindset was like, obviously like he's more, the first thing I said was like, "Are you okay? Like, you all right?" Like he just was like normal. And I was like, man, if it was me, I'd be so jacked up. But what I didn't understand was that like he was reading these near-death experience books and getting in touch with like the mystical side of like, obviously the underground spirituality, like, I'm trying to think, what is mediums and psychics, and like reading those near-death experiences and those authors like comforted him, like, because it was like they weren't the same journey, but they were all very the same, like as far as like they leave this realm or this dimension and they feel this immediate love and joy, and they are surrounded by loved ones, and everyone's experience is different, their stories are different, but it's like, I guess that gave him comfort. So like when I saw that in him, I was like, man, that just like, what is up with that? All right. So like I started researching and like started reading a ton of near-death experience books and mindfulness stuff. And I'm still reading them. Like because like, like, let's say, all right, for example, I have this guy coming on the show not too far from now. He's a neuroscience, neurosurgeon, excuse me. And he was like all science guy, like, basically I don't know if he was atheist or not, but I don't know what his religion was, but he was like, this stuff isn't real. And then he had a near-death experience and now he's totally changed. He's been on all these shows and it's just like, that interests me. So like when you talk about like the death experience and stuff like that, like to understand like that life continues after we're gone, right? But not the way that we think it is, like the belief systems that we're raised with. Like, it's so interesting to me. I don't know how much the Buddhist book are great for me. I read a couple of them. Like, what is the one, the Bhagavad Gita? I read that, and a couple of other books, mystical texts. But the near-death experience stuff and the OBEs are really right up my alley right now. Like, so I feel you. I mean, I'm right there with you. So I got you. I just finished some Robert Monroe material today. I read all 3 of his books. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. No. It might be a little woohoo for a lot of people, especially since we're talking about financial stuff. But it is basically like being able to I don't know. Did you read near-death experiences stuff? Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I do past life regression hypnosis.
Yes.
Okay. I've been trained, I'm certified. So yeah,
Yes. That is all. Where'd you get certified at?
in Sedona. Funny story. I was willing to go anywhere in the world, and I started researching, and it was like, you're supposed to get, trained as soon as possible. I'm searching, and then all of a sudden this gal pops up, and I clicked, and she has a class that she's offering. It's like 2 weeks away, and it's literally 4 minutes from my house. She's been teaching and doing past life regression for like over 50 years.
Wow. So all right. So I just went on vacation and went to this place, and I bought this old book. Like, it was like an old secondhand bookstore. It's like clinical and experimental hypnosis. And it's like from 1970s. How long does it take to get certified in that past life regressions?
So it was a week-long program, every day, all day long. And a lot of it was going back and forth and doing it with other people that were in the class. And it was a pretty small class. But my teacher was crystal clear that until you've done 100 of them beyond that certification, you really don't know what you're doing. And it's so funny because I'm at that 100 mark, and it's taken several years because it's not a big part of my business. The only reason I wanted to do it personally, it's been incredibly healing for me. But I also, when I get into people's psyches and I start to see what's gone on, I could tell that there were many situations that were not created in this life. And because of the techniques I had prior to that only helped me work through forgiveness and things that needed to be done in this life. But I was like woefully unprepared when it was obvious that they came into this life with a certain pattern, and I just became completely obsessed. So it's taken, like, I think I've been doing it for 3 years now.
That is awesome. Like, all right. So how long does it take? Like I mean, obviously it's like 3 hours to do a past life regression?
Yeah, it's a couple hours. I've created some videos so people do work beforehand, because if I'm explaining it all, it adds a lot of time to it. And I've had good success with that. But typically it's about 2 hours, but it's unexpected because you're going back into this life and you're seeing scenes happen that are the most important scenes in that life. And they literally nail a story and a healing of something that we need to heal in this life. It's so crazy. Like,
so when you're doing it, like, I've never done it. So I want to do it so bad. When you're having yours, do you feel, are you there? Like, do you feel like you're there physically, or is it kind of like you're dreaming?
It's like you're there, but it is very similar to a dream. It's so light. Like, for many people who are very left brain, they'll bounce into this life and then go back into the other. Like, that's part of being trained, is saying, hey, come back, like, we need to go deeper. But it's so light. You could answer your phone, you could have a conversation with your friend and still be lightly hypnotized. So what happens is, when we start training someone to do it for the first time, there will be some questions like, can you smell? Can you hear? Do you see colors? Do you see anything? Like, some people don't see anything. They just have a sense. Other people see everything in vivid colors. It's fascinating, but the story is the thing that you're there to witness. And so you let the story unfold, just like a movie, if you were sitting down to watch a movie.
That's awesome. What was your past life? Like, what your most recent life, I guess, that you lived? I mean, right now, obviously you're an author, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen lives probably as close as in the 20s or 30s. And, so I was born in 1966, and, I don't recall, or I have never seen anything probably in the life, maybe between, but I've seen in the 20s. And I've been both men and women. I also think it's interesting because my husband, who I've been together in this life for like 33 years, he keeps appearing and we flip-flop.
Really?
So it's fascinating. Like, sometimes I'm here to support him, or he's here to support me. And it's like really cool.
That is cool. So like soulmates for sure.
Yeah, totally.
That is awesome. So what made you want to do the past life regressions? Like, did I miss something? Like you said something, there was like a sign or a feeling or something that you had to do that, or what?
Yeah, I knew that there was a tool that would help me help people more. And I had enough cases where I felt like the stories were going beyond this life. And so that made me curious. And then once I leaned into it, oh, I know what happened. I hosted a retreat in Sedona, and one of my clients who showed up to attend is a hypnotist who focuses on weight loss and other things, but she was able to do, we were doing some work at the retreat, and I asked her to help me because I could tell that this was coming up. I said, could you help me go into another life? And she's like, sure. So we tag teamed this experience in the retreat. And then I was like, wait, can you do that with me? So after, like right before dinner one night, we went in and I started seeing the lives, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Well, did you think it was like, oh, this isn't real? But like, did you,
I think
it helps
so.
to believe in it, right? It helps to believe in it a little bit before you get into it.
I don't know what I believed. I'm pretty open and flexible and receptive, but because I had never done it before, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And
I think you just got to be open-minded to it, right? Like you just got to be open-minded to the entire thing, because, people always are trying to prove it wrong, but you know what? What if it is wrong? Who cares if it's wrong? It's a cool experience. Like it's, I don't know. Like I've had some great conversations with some medium friends, and it's like, I've had conversations with friends who are like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, it's not real. It's like, you know what? Who cares if it's not real? Like, it's a cool idea. You know what I mean? Like, it's just awesome to think about, past lives that we've had. And it's like, who says it's not, think about it right now. We're having a conversation. We're here now on this earth. You know what the odds are of you and I having a conversation right now? Like, our parents had to meet at a certain time, certain location, and get it on and have me. Like, I mean, and my grandparents had to meet and do the same thing. And my great-great-great-great-grandparents had to meet. So it's like the odds are insane that I'm sitting at this desk having a conversation with you. Why is it so outside of the mindset to think that we've had multiple lives? Like, it's just nuts.
It really is. But I also, doing so many of these, I start to question, like, well, where do stories come from? Like fiction-based stories, because it literally is like the stories that you read in a book, but somebody's spontaneously creating them in a matter of an hour or two. And they're incredibly elaborate stories, like that people who have never written a book in their lives are coming up with. And they would have said they could have never come up with something. And I mean, these are rich stories that I have nothing to do with. I literally ask questions. Sometimes people will do the work for another person. That isn't what I do. I'm literally helping them tell me the answers to questions. There's no leading. In fact, that's not really helpful because you want them to have their experience. So where does it come from?
Yeah. What's been the most memorable one for you that you facilitated?
So it's interesting. I probably could come up with ones, but here's, let me see. Okay, there is a story. So a woman who was a man in a previous life, and I can't remember the challenge, but it may come out. Oh, it was something about stealing, about not feeling that she deserved the money that she was making. And so in this life, this boy, the scene starts where a boy is took his time coming home and comes around the corner, and his house is burning down and his whole family is in the house. And so he's losing everybody. And he was maybe 7 or 8. And when we go back to the next scene, it turns out that he kind of became, this is back in like the 30s or 40s in the United States, it seemed. He ends up becoming like a ranch hand, and he lives in a barn, and he sleeps on the hay, and he helps out in the family. I think things that are like a ranch, and there's animals and other things that he helps out on, but he has this fascination with the woman of the home. And it wasn't until we did the life review that it turns out that this woman reminded him of his mom, who he had lost when he was 8. But at some point, this man ends up going into the house when they're gone, and the person that my client was, and steals this jar of money and brings it into the barn and hides it. But he decides in his mind that the money is going to be used because he's going to woo this woman away to like fall in love with him. And they end up finding the money, and he's hung and killed as a result. So they're not all this graphic, folks. Like, I just want to say sometimes they're really mundane and boring, but there's still a meaning. But what happened is the awakening and the healing of stealing the money, but understanding that the money was stole because this little boy never had his chance to like develop. He lost his whole family in this fire and was literally living life like a 7-year-old, even though he was now like in his 20s. It just totally healed all this stuff inside because she no longer felt like when she got money, she was going to be killed. That's how she'd felt.
Wow. That is insane. Like that's crazy. What about you? Like how has that helped you? Like, looking at your past lives and some of the healing that had to be done. Because it's not only, obviously there is some soul healing that needs to be done, but there's also like, people forget, well, they don't forget, but, ancestral healing too, like your genetics, your DNA, they're, obviously the cells from your parents have memories and they transfer some of their fears over to you as well. So you're like double dipping in fear. You got like the soul healing that you have to do. And then like the ancestral, how have like your past lives, like what did you pick up and how have you healed from those situations?
So it's probably helpful just to mention, because we haven't talked so much about this, that I have been, ever since my dad died, I have been on a super intense spiritual journey, and I'm a daily meditator, which gives me powers of controlling my mind at levels that most people don't have, because it takes years and years and years to develop this. So past life regression is helpful to me. It's not always this way for other people. We help, but if I see a belief appear, and I can't get to the bottom of a belief that I know has come up over and over again. And so a few years ago, after I had been trained, and I went back to Mary Elizabeth and I said, I have a belief that I am going to be harmed if I speak my truth. And it goes beyond this life, and I see it showing up. And the more I try to write this book, I can't do it unless this belief goes away. I can't do this business. I'm too afraid. And so we went in immediately. I, wake up basically in this scene back in Rome or ancient Greece. It's hard to tell exactly, thousands of years ago. And long story short, my dad dies. I take over rulership of this area. I'm a very kind and benevolent leader, and everything starts falling apart. So I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, but the times really were harsh and brutal. And my younger brother was like, you're wrecking it for everybody. You're not taking care of business. Like, people need to be killed when they don't do what they're supposed to do. I don't know, bad things. And I was like, absolutely not. And ultimately he killed me because he was like, you need to get out of the way and let me take over. God. And I kid you not, that was done. And I've never been afraid of sharing. Like, the book would not exist if I hadn't done that work. It was gone like instantly.
Game of Thrones stuff going on over there. That's
totally.
You need to write a book about that. Like, seriously. You should have put that in here. Mindful Millionaire. And then, you got your chakras and your meditation / past life regressions too. Like, that's all. Do all your clients know that you do past life regressions? Because that's a bonus.
I must still be in the closet. I think some people know. When you're writing a book, you can only focus on so many things.
Oh, that's what you need to be focusing on. So you can get, you can get your 401k investment jacked up. You can get your portfolio fully done. Also, you can get your past life regression if you want for, half price with the membership. So you said you could read people's fears, right? So how does that work? Like, so is it like a intuition kind of thing? Do you just, when you talk to people, you can kind of like feel their energy? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, you can call it feeling their energy. Like I said, when people speak and they start to get close to the fear zone, everything changes in their way of being. And
How do
that's
you know,
something.
where's the fear zone at? Like, where is that?
So, I mean, really, really quickly, all it takes is tuning in to what are you most afraid of?
Mm.
What are you most afraid of? Sometimes, I mean, the cool thing with money, I mean, from my perspective, is that you don't have to look very far to find fear. It's somewhere in there. Survival or worth, or, there's so many things tied up in money. But I think that's why it makes my job easy, is once we focus on money, then fears come out, people share them, and I literally tune in to what's happening in my body, what's happening in their body, what's happening, what voices am I hearing?
Wow. That's awesome. I love that, because it's like, I don't know. I think money does cause a lot of fears, right? Like, one of my fears with money is like, what is enough? What is enough? What is the number that is going to be enough? Like, is there, before you can actually give yourself permission to like relax a little bit, right? Like, to kind of be like, all right, you've done what you're supposed to do, just chill out, like, just enjoy, right? Like, I don't know, that worries me sometimes. It's like, when is it going to be? Because like, the more money that you make, you just kind of live at that level, right? Like, you live at the next level, you get a raise, and it's like, oh, I got a raise, so now I can do, you're just basically, increasing your purchases. Like, you're living at that next level of your income, right? Like, you get a 15% raise, and you're going to start living, you're just going to buy more things.
Well, that's what a lot of people do, and that's what we've been trained to think of. I think in my own journey, I did all of that, and then was doing all this inner work. And at some point there was an intersection of, holy crap, all this stuff is actually part of the problem. And then it became like all about minimalism. And then we found that wasn't it either, but we keep adjusting. I think we're after, 30 years of working on it, we're in a really good place, but you know what I mean? Like, you try one thing and then you're like, well, it's just maybe like, that's not it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. You try something, try it on, see if you like it. I think it's just, for me, it's just like, we're never going to be like that fear of being broke, right? Like, of just being homeless. Like, oh my God, I'm an entrepreneur. I just lost everything. Like, unless you absolutely have no friends or family, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think anyone will ever get to that point, right?
I agree. I really, really, really agree with that. That there are always going to be options. There are always going to be ways, even if it's working with a group of people to grow your own food. Like, there's always going to be options.
And I think, like, you might not be living at where you were, that maybe, I mean, I don't know, I don't think an entrepreneur is ever like 100% comfortable. I don't think they're like, no worries. I think there's always going to be a worry, right? Like, there's payroll, there's, I got to pay someone else's salary, their kids depend on me. There's always other worries that you have. My thing is like really trying to be in the moment, like just really like right now, there is no worry, right? Like, there's you and I having a kick-ass discussion about past life regressions, sprinkled with a little bit of financial stuff. But there is no worry in the present. Like, we forget that, we get so wrapped up in the ego of, fear, worrying about the past and fearing the future, what it's going to bring. We never capitalize on the moment. We never really say, hey, look, this is where it's at. This is the gift, right? Like, this is right here, like feeling the emotion, like remembering this moment and being all in it and remembering it. I mean, I'm guilty of that. It took me a long time, a lot of trial and error, a lot of, mishaps, a lot of failures to, it's funny. It's like, I was a hardcore entrepreneur. Now I'm like a hardcore in the moment guy, like I was so worried about building a business and, worrying about, being successful and having those external rewards, those external trophies, those external ideas, whatever I needed to be successful, that I totally was never in the moment, never, really in the moment. And that's where, like, that's why we keep coming back. Like I'm a reincarnation. Obviously you're a reincarnation, believer as well. But that's why I believe that's why we keep coming back is to feel that humanness, that human emotion. Like I was giving my daughter a bath and like, she's going to be 2 in December. And like, I'm just sitting there, like sitting on, cause like I'm older now. So I'm like 37. So like, it's different. I have 3 kids. Cam's 10. My daughter just turned 8 and she'll be 2 in December. And when I was younger, I was a very loving dad, but it was like, again, I was, hustling, doing the work thing. So it was like, giving a bath, I was like, hurry up, get in the bath, let's go. Now it's, I'm older. I'm very much so trying to be in the moment where I give her a bath and I'm like really enjoying it. Like, this is why we keep coming back. This is, because I want to feel this love right now. I want to feel that her looking at me and like, wow, that's, another human being that depends on you for survival. And I don't know. I'm going on a rant right now and
It's
I'm stealing your
beautiful.
time.
It's beautiful. I want to share, I have a 23-year-old daughter. She just turned 23. And several years ago, she begged to save money to be a part of a group that wanted to go bring lightly used shoes to orphanage in what turned out to be, they were going to Kenya, but they went to Ghana and they spent 3 weeks working in orphanages. And my daughter has grown up in a very comfortable environment, to put it mildly, but she was passionate about this. And she came back. And the one thing she said to me was, she said, Mom, these folks are living on less than $5 a day. And I want to be crystal clear with you that they are the happiest people I have ever met in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, put that in perspective. Like, I don't know. I just wish, like, I'm way better than what I used to be. Like, just obviously, there's just a lot, the ego, like the you got to have this Facebook, showing it in your face all the time. Like, I think what has helped me is, one, my spirituality, if you want to call it that, my studying of consciousness and trying to understand it more, and near-death experience research and what lies after this, that there is a bigger picture. There is, we're small, like this is nothing compared to what the universe is. And then understanding that and being like the raise doesn't matter, the car doesn't matter, none of that matters. Like, what is possession? What is ownership? Like, that is not ownership. That's like, you have something temporarily for a small period of your life, and then it's gone and you can't take anything with you. Like, the only thing that you take with you is obviously that consciousness into the next dimension, but the knowledge that you obtain. So like, my thing is, it's not how much you obtain, it's the knowledge that you learn, right? Like, that's what you take with you. And so like, I'm obsessed with like studying new things and taking that with me into whatever next life. So that way it doesn't take me 37 years to become more aware. Maybe I do it in 25. I don't know. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but that was a nice little thought. What was I going to say? So you're very interesting. You have the financial experience. You have the yogi, meditation stuff, right? Like you said, you reach different levels of, I guess, mindfulness or meditation or consciousness. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, different levels, higher levels, like, explain that.
So what I've learned over this 21 years is that exactly what you were talking about, that in the present moment, we can be everything, we can be all. And I think that the challenge is, I understand, because of my own intimacy with pain and suffering and a really, really loud negative critic for much of my life, I understand the difference of what it means to live with that voice running the show and silence running the show. and being in pure awareness, running my life from pure awareness. Now, it doesn't mean that I stay in that state all the time, but I know it's there waiting for me in seconds whenever I want to tap into it. And I can go and I can play and I can imagine that all of this is completely real and true and that I'm helping people. Like, that's a really funny one. Like, I know that that's not really what's happening, but I can play. It's like a movie that isn't totally real in the way that the ego identifies with it. In comparison to that moment of silence and grace and love that, and when I say love, like unconditional love, like no matter what anybody's done, no matter what the story is, absolutely refusing to let anyone be outside of your heart and knowing that's the truth as opposed to all the other stories.
Ooh. So, like, you said something that caught my ear. You said, like, to think that, helping people. Do you not believe that this book will help people? Do you feel like that? Do you really think that you're not helping people?
I think that my ego thinks that there's a job to do and that I'm here to help people. But I think that the higher awareness is very clear that it's merely a reflection of my own inadequacies that thinks that anyone actually needs anyone's help because we are perfect and complete and whole. We're just living in this experience that tells us that we're not, and it's really, really seductive. Sure. But I know the difference. And that changes everything. It doesn't mean that you're completely free of suffering. It means that you just don't sit there for very long. Like it's a temporary state and it doesn't have that much impact.
Sure. No, the suffering, right? Like, what is success without the suffering? Like, you have to go through suffering. Like, you have to. Like, that's the journey. It's like, it's what strengthens you. It's like what molds you into what you are. Like, without my suffering, I wouldn't be here to be able to speak upon the things that I can, because it's what motivates you. It's like, something happens to you that just sucks, but it changed you. Like it took something tragic, like your father being murdered, to change something in you. I mean, of course, that's terrible. It's like the worst case scenario, but it happened and you had to go through suffering. Now look where you're at now. Like, and now I guarantee you look at it totally different than what you did back then.
Completely. I wonder if we didn't just have some kind of contract and he was like, here's what it's going to take. And I'm playing this role for you this time and you can do it for me next time.
Oh man, I totally look at death differently, like 100%. Like I do not fear death the way that I used to. I think people who die are just, it's the next adventure. It's just like birth. It is just, death is just like birth. It is just, transformation of energy, right? Like energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's just transferred into a different state. And people are they're just so scared of the unknown. They fear what is out there because obviously there is no, we have amnesia, according to some mystics, and we just don't know. And that fear, as you can read in people and connect with, like, people are scared of death because of our belief systems that we implement at a young age of conditioning of religion and spirituality, that you have to live a perfect life, and in order to get into heaven, you have to meet these rules and regulations, which nobody can ever meet. But yeah, the freedom comes with the knowledge, and the knowledge you have to work at. Like, it's not going to be something, if it was easy, like gaining that knowledge, then everyone would be aware. But it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of reading different books and experiencing different experiences and having conversations like this with you, who, great surprise, she's in the past life regressions. I didn't know that, but how wonderful is it to have her on here, and just testing the waters, being open-minded to different belief systems. And then that's how you grow. Like, we are, 5 years from now, you're going to be totally different than what you are right now.
Completely. Yeah, moving to Sedona and being able to write the book in Sedona was a big step because I needed to be around people that would give me the space to have these kinds of conversations. Where I was living at the time, it didn't feel that way to me. And I felt I very much doubted. And I think that when we lean into these parts of ourselves, it's good to have a tribe of people who support it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like how much did you fear, even mentioning chakras or past life regressions? Like, was your husband like accepting to that, or was he kind of like, what are you doing?
Well, he's been on the journey for the 21 years. There were many years he wasn't sure I was coming back from my long retreats. He thought I'd come back, I'd have no hair. I'd be like, see ya, because I was going to become a nun. And I would talk to him about it, thankfully. And he'd be like, please don't do that. Like, it'd be better if you stayed. So supportive, yes, because he knows how strong-willed I am. And he was like, I'm not going to be able to change her anyways. So I'm just going to listen. And he learns through osmosis, but he's an incredible teacher now because he's hung out and we've gone through so much together. But I feel like a lot of my friends have changed over the years, especially becoming an entrepreneur and being willing to talk about it. It's one thing to be like a closet Buddhist, but it's another to be out there, teaching people or writing books and owning, a different way of thinking. Yeah, a lot of people don't fully understand it.
Yeah, I'm dropping my first past life regression episode this week coming up. I had a conversation with a nice lady, Joanne DiMaggio. We talk about past life regressions, and a lot of my audience is the first time they're going to hear it. So a lot of fear there. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but I'm excited about where this podcast is going. Well, but you shed those, you outgrow them, right? Like people, it's kind of like, just like our spiritual, I don't know how you call it. Like you raise your level, you raise your game. Like the more levels that you go up, you're gonna leave people behind. It is what it is. It's the nature of growth.
And there's not as many people interested in this quite yet. Not in the way that maybe you and I are used to before this.
But I think there's going to be an awakening to this. I think there's going to be a lot more. I think you're going to see an increase in these conversations. I just think, with I call it like a consciousness revolution. I think it's going to be the next thing. We had the agricultural revolution, you had the industrial revolution. I think you're going to have, like after 2020, especially with this pandemic, I think you're going to see like a consciousness revolution where people are going to be more awakened to things like this, these methods. I'm definitely going to push it.
Oh, sorry. When you have a lot of people die, it has been proven to really change the way that people think about spiritual understanding. And that happened after the Civil War when they lost so many people. The spiritualist church actually came out of the Civil War because people were badly needing to connect with their deceased, loved ones. And that took off and it still exists to this day.
Leisa, this has been amazing. This has been fun. How can people connect with you and how can they buy your book, The Mindful Millionaire?
So you can go to mindfulmillionairebook.com and watch a video and learn more about the book and the freebies and things that we're giving away to everyone who buys it. And my website is wealthclinic.com, and you can learn more about what I'm up to, my podcast, and other adventures.
What's your podcast called?
So I have a new one called Mindful Millionaire. So creative. And then I have another show called Art of Abundance. And there's like 250 episodes of spanning between money and the kind of psychic stuff. So it's fun.
Underworld stuff. I love it. So 250 episodes. That's how long you've been doing that?
I started in 2015.
Oh, look at you. One a week?
I don't know. It's never been that regular. It's like sometimes I'll do a whole mess of them and then I'll go a month without.
I'm going to check that out for sure. Leisa, what do you want your legacy to be?
I don't know if I really think about it in that word, but I'm going to just see what comes through. I want to be known, if that's what we're asking here, that I was able to show people a pathway to finding unconditional love in all areas of their lives. That's the most important thing.
That. Best answer in a while. Thank you so much for joining the show. This has been amazing. You've been an amazing guest, full of surprises. Yeah, definitely check her out. Leisa Peterson, author of The Mindful Millionaire and facilitator of past life regressions on, keep that on the download though. Thank you, Leisa, so much.
Thank you, Trey. Thank you, listeners.
I want to say thank you to Leisa for coming on the show. I want to say thank you to you, the listener. Thank you for downloading. Take the time, please, to leave a rating and a review. It helps me scale the show and get this out to those who may need it the most. Guys, I hope you have an amazing week, and I hope that you guys are fully growing and becoming more aware of the inner power that is within inside of you that is just creating this amazing reality for you and for others. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you later.